Hi, hello, my name is Leah. For the past couple weeks, I've been line editing my book, which has been an adventure because I have not been at this stage in writing before, and I'm going a little bit crazy. It's hard being so nitpicky all the time. I'm very much used to, when I'm writing, just sort of being like, I'll fix it later, but now is later. Now is the time where I have to fix it. And you know, there's a lot of stuff to fix. Okay, that might be a little bit dramatic. I'm actually not like super upset with the quality of the writing. There are chunks where, you know, things feel good, the word choice is good, it's giving off the effect that I want it to, or at least I think it is. That's the other thing with this is I don't really have a frame of reference for if I'm doing this well or not. This isn't something that I've studied very much, and so I don't feel super confident that I'm making the right choices. I'm making choices, who knows if they're right. But then there's other sections where I'm just kind of like, why did you choose any of these words? They are all bad. You're using was way too many times, and also just, and even, and turned, and stepped, and looked. There's a lot of looking going on in this draft. So we're cutting a lot of that. I'm making a list of all my crutch words so that after I'm done with this pass of line editing, I can just like type them into the search and then go through and look for those words specifically, because I know I'm missing some. They're crutch words for a reason, and so they blend in my mind. So I'm trying to pay attention to that, and you know, that'll be line edit draft 2.0. But for now, we're working on the actual line edit. And I thought it would be fun today to bring you along and show you kind of how I'm trying to guess at how to do this. I actually skipped the first section of the first chapter, page 1, because I knew I wanted to do this. And you know, that's the hard thing about being on YouTube and wanting to show your writing or your work while also having plans to publish is there's not much I can specifically share that doesn't have spoilers in it. So we've got a little section that we're gonna line edit today. It's 269 words, nice. And there's a few things that I'm gonna be looking for based off of my revision notes. One, and probably the thing that is going to be maybe the most difficult to accomplish, I don't know, is the end of this section that I'm sharing. The last line is sneak out with me. And so that's on this piece of paper that my main character drops. She's afraid, she doesn't want anyone to see that paper, and it's sort of the first like hook, I guess, that makes the reader go, huh, what's that about? Because you don't really know who this note is meant for, you don't know where she's sneaking out to and what the context around this thing is, and so I want to get that at the bottom of page 1. The second thing I want to be looking for in this section is I need to clarify the descriptions a little bit, specifically about the magic and the holiday. So we're opening on a holiday celebration, and I really want to pack as much world building as I possibly can in this first section without it feeling too exposition-y. My problem though is I always err on the side of caution when it comes to exposition. I sometimes am not clear enough or don't include enough because I'm afraid of it sounding exposition-y, so I need to strike that balance here because that's something that I've gotten somewhat consistently in my feedback, is that there are times where my magic system is a little bit unclear. So I want to be as clear as possible as soon as possible on that. And then the other thing that I want to do, and I think this will vaguely come up in this section, is I want to emphasize my main character's sort of disdain for the nobility. I just want to make it clear right off the bat how she's feeling, what she values, that sort of thing. And that one comes into play a little bit more as the scene progresses, but you know, this is page 1. I just want to establish those things really clearly as soon as possible up front. So those are the things that I'm going to be looking for now. I'm going to pop you into the draft and we can take a look at what it looks like right now. Okay, so this is the draft. I've separated it out into a different document so that we don't like scroll down and continue to see more than I want you to see. But this is the very beginning of chapter 1. I've also formatted it so that it's in standard manuscript formatting mainly so that I can see where the first page ends. So like I said, I want to get this sneak out with me at the bottom of the first page. So I'm essentially attempting to cut the equivalent of like that amount of stuff. So the state that this is in, I'll give you a brief overview of what I've done editing wise so far. I did my 0 draft. That's just a rough, quick, fast draft of the book. I then did a revision based off of my own notes, so that turned it into draft 1. I then gave draft 1 to beta readers. They gave me some feedback, and I did a draft 2 based off of their feedback. So this right here is draft 2. It's been revised twice developmentally, and that's why I feel like it's at a good place story-wise, structure-wise, that sort of thing. And now we're jumping into the line level. I don't feel like I need to set the scene for this just because it's page 1, so that's what the words are supposed to be doing. So let's just give this a quick read through and then we can jump in. Elaine scowled in the back corner of the ballroom, trying to look as unapproachable as possible. No matter how much her father or Roshi insisted she engage with the other Shaden nobles, holidays were not meant for slogging through conversations with social climbers. There were candles burning on the chandelier, practically blasphemous on the one day a year the sun didn't rise. They made the shadows so hazy, Elaine had to close her eyes to sense the room properly. The frames of passing servants carrying appetizers and drinks felt blurred in the dim light. Outside, by contrast, was so black the thatched roofs at the bottom of the valley were barely visible through the arched windows, though the glass blocked Elaine from sensing the shadows past it. Only a sliver of moon hung in the sky, and there were no fires glowing in the village. Even without seeing or sensing, Elaine knew the streets were full of Shaden folk who would be dancing long into sleeping hours. But with Vardian guests who were unable to sense shadow, the nobility was doomed to suffer in their own accommodations. Tova would appreciate the light, Elaine supposed. At the thought, Elaine reached beneath the navy scarf wrapped around her neck, tugging as if she were adjusting its placement, and grasped a scrap of parchment from under the bust of her dress. As she pulled it out, the paper snagged, slipped out of her fingers, and floated to the floor. The inked words shone like a beacon, her own damning cursive on display for all to see. Sneak out with me. So that's where we are right now, and it's a lot. I don't think we need this much. There's nothing, especially on page 1, that really hooks you as the reader and really intrigues you into seeing what happens next, into seeing what Elaine is going to do. There's a lot of description. We're setting the scene, which is good. We do need to set the scene and we need to give the reader a visual, but I don't think we need this much. I think we can stretch out the visual a little bit more after we've established who the heck Elaine is and why the heck the reader should care about what she's doing. And we'll start with line 1. Now, I don't know if this is a good line or not. I feel like I'm terrible at first lines, and like I said, I feel like I don't have a frame of reference on if this is good or not, but it's as good as I feel like it's gonna be, so we're just gonna go with it and just make it as good as it can be. So I don't think there's much that I want to change about this, but I think I'm just going to delete this because I feel like it's kind of redundant. She's trying to look unapproachable. We don't need the extra words. It gets the same message across, essentially. No matter how much her father or Roshi insisted she engage with the other Shaden nobles. So here we have her father. I'm introducing him soon on purpose because he does play a fairly major role in Elaine's goals throughout the novel. And then he comes up very quickly after this thing. So she drops the note, and then as she's like trying to pick it up before anyone sees, her father sort of comes and she's like, oh, did he see it? I don't know, like that kind of thing. So we're introducing him up here, and then he comes into the scene very shortly after. However, I don't think we need Roshi. Roshi is Elaine's aunt. She's important emotionally to Elaine because of some stuff that happens later, but she's not really a character in the book ever. And so I don't want to waste time talking about her in paragraph 1. In this section, I want to emphasize Elaine's sort of disdain for the nobility, like I said, and right now it just sort of feels lukewarm, if that makes sense. I want to get some better verbs in here just to really emphasize how Elaine feels about talking to these sorts of people. So we have engage here. And this, like I said, this I think is the main lukewarm verb. Talk with, that doesn't feel good. I'm trying to think of a word that like is gonna convey, I don't know. See, I'm having trouble articulating things because the word that I'm trying to find is the word that I need here. Her father is wanting her to talk to some of these nobles because he has like this legislation he's trying to get passed. And so it's sort of like he wants her to butter them up, essentially. So maybe let's go with schmooze. That, I think that is the word that I'm looking for, I think. That just gets across that kind of like skeezy type of politicking that I want. I debate if other is necessary here, but I really want to make it clear that Elaine is a part of the nobility, and so is her father. I don't think that that's necessarily blatant in these two sentences, but I think other at least hints toward that. I also want to use this as an opportunity to not only emphasize what Elaine doesn't like, but emphasize what she does value. So right now we just have a negative, like it's not meant for this, but I kind of am curious about, well, Leah knows obviously, but as a reader, I feel like I would be curious about what Elaine thinks holidays are for. So I'm just gonna say we're meant for fun because this is not about business to her. She doesn't want to engage in that. Holidays were meant for fun, not meant, we're gonna delete this second meant, not for slogging through conversations with social climbers. So this is true, yes. What she hates about this is just sort of the fakeness of the nobility in general. She doesn't like the fact that everyone's just trying to get more power and use their relationships to get more power. But I also sort of just want to emphasize the feeling of why this is not fun to her. So I'm thinking of, you know, Thanksgiving dinner when you have to listen to your family members debate about politics and you're like, I just want to eat my food. So we're gonna go no matter how much her father insisted she schmooze the other shady nobles, holidays were meant for fun, not for slogging through conversations with old men about politics. I like that. I don't know if it's perfect, it probably is not, but I like that more than what it was. And we've cut a net 2 words so far. So we need to do a lot more to get this up here, right here. There were candles burning on the chandelier. So this is an instance of passive voice, and this is an easy fix. Candles burned on the chandelier. That just like condenses the sentence. We know, like the candles are doing the burning, and so we don't need to say that there were candles burning. It's just candles burned. That being said, I do sort of want to lean into this image a little bit more, just because right here we have 0 setting happening. We have 0 image for the rest of the room. And so let's use a bit more imagery in this sentence. Candles flickered on the silver chandelier. So I feel like that just gives a bit more of a description of the way the light is moving. And I kind of have this image of, you know, the metal of the chandelier and the light reflecting off of it. And even though that's not a ton of words to convey that, that's sort of the image that I get from those words. Practically blasphemous on the one day a year the sun didn't rise. I like this sentence, but I'm gonna delete practically because just saying it is blasphemous and not just, it might be blasphemous. That's just sort of some stronger language right there. And then this is sort of the first hint of what this holiday is, which I don't fully need the reader to totally understand yet, but it sort of explains why this day is particularly special, because it's the one day a year that the sun doesn't rise. And that, you know, gives a bit of curiosity, I think, to why is this the day that they're celebrating? Why is this a holiday? This is where we need to clarify some things. This, I feel like, is a little bit unclear. And I think part of the reason it's unclear is because Elaine isn't able to sense the shadows clearly because of the candles. So Elaine is Shaden. She has power. to sense and manipulate shadow and darkness. So part of the magic system here is that when the room is pitch black, any Shaden who is in that room is able to sort of sense the shape of everything. Like their eyes are still blinded by the blackness, but they'd be able to feel the shape of the room and feel where everything is. And the shadows are sort of an extension of their senses in that way. So I'm just going to maybe delete all of that, question mark. Elaine had to close her eyes to sense the room properly because I feel like even though we're cutting the shadow detail, this just sort of like, is it more clear? I'm not sure. I'm thinking that this is more clear, that she's not using her eyes to see. And then, you know, the reader's sort of like, wait, how is she sensing? But I don't know. Let me know if you agree with that decision. I'm gonna stick with that for now. And then I'm gonna use this as the opportunities to sort of portray how Elaine is sensing the room. So the frames of passing servants carrying appetizers and drinks felt blurred in the dim light. So here, I'm gonna replace something here with the hazy shadows, because it's the shadows that she's using, and I want to get away from describing anything in terms of it being the light that she's using to sense or see. The frames of passing servants carrying appetizers and drinks felt blurred in the hazy shadows. I think I'm going to delete and drinks. I still want them carrying appetizers because, or maybe the opposite. I'm gonna delete appetizers because I feel like we don't need 2 examples of what the servants are carrying. That's not really important to the story, other than establishing that this is a banquet, but I do that later a little bit more. And the reason I chose appetizers to delete over drinks is because later in the scene, Elaine grabs a drink and downs it real quick. And so I figured that would probably be the better choice, just to establish that there are drinks being carried around. So we've cut a fair amount of words so far. We've cut 12 words, which is good. However, this is still a fair amount of space away. Next paragraph. Outside, by contrast, was so black the thatched roofs at the bottom of the valley were barely visible. Blah, 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 blah. So I think my reasoning for including this paragraph here was to just sort of establish the village, establish that that is where Elaine wants to go, and then use that as an opportunity to sort of talk about how within the magic system, if you're like enclosed in a particular room, you can only sense the room. So even if it's dark outside, Elaine isn't able to reach out with the shadows and sense what's happening outside because there's a wall blocking. She's only able to sense with the shadows that she's like in contact with. But that might be, I don't know if that's necessary here. There's no consequences to that specific magic rule in this chapter, and that doesn't really come up until maybe chapter 3. So there's a lot of room in between now and then to establish that rule of the magic system. I think that including it here just bogs down the writing. My other thing here is I don't think that this is accomplishing what I want it to in terms of establishing that Elaine wants to go to the village. So this whole sneak out with me thing, this is her wanting to sneak out of the nobility party and party basically with the common folk. She wants to go down there and have a real holiday with real people because she's tired of the fakeness that is the nobility. But this, I don't think does any of it. I think I'm trying too hard to set the scene, and this isn't the scene that needs to be set at this moment. So we just gonna delete the whole paragraph, and look at that. That is not what I expected to happen there. Cool. This paragraph has made it draft by draft, and it's just one of those things that now me going into with a much more detailed eye and a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb, I can't justify any of these words. I think in draft 1, like my first revision, this made it through, and I still was trying to get Sneak Out With Me like as close to the top as possible, but Sneak Out With Me ended up being, I think, at the bottom of the 2nd page. So we had a whole nother page of just stuff that has been cut to get that line landing on the 1st page, which I think is the best decision. With that paragraph cut, Moving into this now feels like it is supposed to be a part of this paragraph, because this paragraph is setting up the light, the shadows, and now this is answering why those things are present if Elaine doesn't like them. So we're gonna combine these, but with Varnian guests who are unable to sense shadow. So I like this. I'm not gonna change anything about this because we're giving a contrast. So we've established Shaden, we've established sensing the room, we've established it has to do with shadows. And now we're introducing the second race of people who are present at this party, and it is the Varnians. And these people are not able to sense shadow. And we're giving an answer to why the candles are present. So, but with Varnian guests who are unable to sense shadow, the nobility. Here's the thing, both the Shaden and the Varnian who are present are nobility. So we're going to add in Shaden here again, just to emphasize once more, Shaden are shadows, Varnian are not. Two different groups of people present in this room right now. And also, you know, this is the first page, so the reader is still learning what these words mean, so we're just gonna repeat it again just to nail that one in a little bit more. The Shaden nobility were doomed to suffer in their own accommodations. I don't think I have any problem with the rest of that. I think I like this sentence overall because this is also Elaine's perspective and she's viewing the candles, especially on this particular holiday, which is celebrating the darkness, as, you know, blasphemous. And she understands why, but there's an element of selfishness in terms of we shouldn't have to accommodate the others. This is the holiday, it's supposed to be fun, I should be able to get to do what I want, that sort of more self-centered attitude. And then we have Tova would appreciate the light, Elaine supposed. I don't have any problem with that either because again, we're introducing Tova as a character who is a very significant character throughout. She's Elaine's best friend. Saying she would appreciate the light, I think implies that she is Varnian because she is, and I don't know how else to get that across without saying Tova is Varnian. And, you know, we go into a little bit more detail about that later. We learn what Tova's magic is, what that's like, and we learn what Varnian magic in general is like as well. So I'm okay with leaving that as is right now. But again, let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for any of this, if you think that anything that I'm saying is unclear or if I'm cutting stuff that might be important. I would love to hear any feedback you have about this as well, because I think an outside perspective also is going to be the best judge of what is being communicated in these pages, because I obviously know what I'm trying to do. It's just a matter of me trying to figure out if what I'm trying to do is coming across the way that I want it to. Moving on, final paragraph. At the thought, which I'm including here and I'm not cutting because I do want to make the connection between Tova being the reason that she thinks of the note, because Tova is going to be the recipient of the note, but I don't necessarily want to say that like outright right now. I want to leave a little bit of mystery there, but you know, thinking of Tova is what prompts this next paragraph. At the thought, Elaine reached beneath the navy scarf. I'm just gonna say, in order to condense this, we all know how scarves work. We all know that when you say it's her navy scarf, that it's going to be wrapped around her neck. I'm also going to, there's another word here, so we're just going to, tugging as if adjusting its placement. We get what that means. We don't need those extra filler words. I don't see anything bad about this. I'm just sort of trying to convey the movement and the fact that she was hiding it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with like trying to umph up any verbs here. I think that would just be extra if I was trying to do that. As she pulled it out, the paper snag slipped out of her fingers and floated to the floor. So there's something about this sentence that just isn't flowing right for me. When I originally wrote it, I do remember intentionally doing this sort of list format here just to make the action go quicker. I didn't want to spend too much time describing the paper falling to the floor, that sort of thing, but it just feels odd to me right now and I don't know why, so we're just gonna fix it. First off, we don't need out. We know she's pulling it, so as she pulled it, the paper snagged. Let's just cut this. As she pulled it, the paper snagged and floated to the floor. Okay, that means we don't need this comma either. The inked words shone like a beacon, her own damning cursive on display for all to see. Well, okay, but here's the thing. I think we're still missing a bit of context as to why it's floating to the floor. So maybe as she pulled it, the paper snagged and slipped out of her fingers, period. And then we turned this into it floated to the floor. The inked words shining like a beacon. This I like, this I want to keep, this is good. My only question here is the word shining. So the words aren't literally shining. And I think as a reader I would understand this, but also as an author, this is figurative language, obviously. However, why use figurative language that has to do with light when we're talking about shadow and Elaine's whole thing is that she can sense shadow. Now, the problem is obviously there's no shadow word that conveys the sort of like bright type of, oh, look at me thing. Because the whole thing is the fact that her words are there for anyone to read. It's like it's drawing attention, she thinks, and she doesn't want that attention. I need to maybe work on this. Maybe we don't need anything here and we just rely on display. Okay, how would that work? Maybe her own inky cursive on display for all to see. Her own inked cursive, maybe. Let's bookmark that. Actually, let's not bookmark that. I think that is the move. Her own inked cursive on display for all to see. That gets rid of the damning part, and this is tough because I don't mind that the word got cut. My only potential question here is, does cutting that word now de-emphasize the stakes of what happens if someone sees this? So like, how is the reader supposed to know that Elaine doesn't want someone to see this? Okay, maybe we do this. It floated to the floor, the ink of her own, and then I'm just gonna reject that guy. The ink of her own damning cursive on display. Okay, that preserves both words. We've cut the shine word. I think that's a good compromise between everything. Okay, there we go. That is the first page of Project Shadows. I was about to say the real title. We're not saying that yet. Actually, I think I said it in my Author Mentor Match blog. So maybe people know. I don't know. We're just gonna keep saying Project Shadows. That was fun. So now we're at 175. What did we start at? 269. That's 94 words that we cut. This feels a lot better to me. I think some of the verbs are a little bit stronger. We've cut a lot of the filler, not only in like that paragraph that we cut, but you know, just like the little things. And we just got a little bit more specific. That is that. Let me know, like I said, if you have any further notes for me for that page. I welcome any and all criticism, because then, you know, it's up to me if I actually listen to it or not. I hope that this was interesting, maybe helpful, who knows? This is me not being a line editing expert, but wanting to sort of share with you, I guess, a little bit of the process of what I have been working on for the past while. As an update, I guess, I'm currently on chapter 12 of 37. We're about a third of the way through the draft, which is exciting. I get in these phases, moods, I guess one could say, where I have to really stop myself from trying to rush ahead, because I just really want to get this draft done, because after this draft is done, I'm gonna start querying. But there's absolutely no rush on that, because, you know, querying is a hellscape and it takes a million years anyways. There's not really any benefit to starting like 1 week early. What I really need to do is just take my time, be thorough with my word choice and my level of attention to detail. Hopefully, maybe it will be a nicely readable draft by the end of this. But that is all I had for today. I don't know if I will do any more line edit with me videos, just because, you know, the further into the draft I get, the more spoilers there will be. I could always try to find a section that I've already line edited and then just sort of explain the changes that I made. So let me know if that is something you would want to see or not. But until then, Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!